Hi, very good afternoon, a very good afternoon and very good evening to all of you. I am Arkam Azar. I am the director and chief consultant of Archaeology. We are a training and development company, and we conduct various different workshops and trainings for businesses, organizations, and youth organizations, even one similar to International Youth Alliance for Peace. Uh, and apart from this, I also run my own travel company. I'm a director of Travolution Private Limited. And as you might all know, it's not the greatest times for the travel industry. And currently, Travolution is something that isn't very operational. So, what we are going to do today, or the topic that has been allocated for me to discuss with you, is the topic of re-evaluating yourself for the future. Uh, what I'd like to do, since we have 30 minutes of time here, is to first put this in context to each and every one of you uh, about what re-evaluating your future is all about. First, if you look at the concept of re-evaluation itself, right? If you look at the concept of re-evaluation itself, re-evaluation is a process of trying to assess something that has already been looked at, trying to do it again, or trying to do it different, right? If you have done this before, if you've done evaluations on yourself before, I would say that this is something that you're going to do differently. Uh, and if you are someone who hasn't done this as at all, it's something that you're going to try for the first time. And evaluating yourself is always a great thing to do. And I recommend that you do it more often than not. So before we jump in, there are certain things that I'd like to put into context with you. And one of that would be to understand, here the context of our evaluation is going to be in terms of what you are doing. So it's about yourself, right? So it's about re-evaluating yourself. In re-evaluating yourself, I'd like to bring out certain aspects that create yourself, the self, right? And ideally, that would be your personality and attitudes or characteristics. Then you could look at your skills and your education. Then it could be your work and your profession. It could be things like your appearance and so on, which would be the aspects that basically help you to evaluate yourself, which makes you, right? So in evaluating yourself, these are certain factors that you could do. So I'd like you to, if you are in the close reach of getting your hands on a pen and a piece of paper, I recommend that you do that, right? I recommend that you do that because this session is going to be something that is not going to just be that I came and told you something and spoke about something and left. I want it to be a session where together we discuss this and we are able to kind of help you through this session gain something productive that you are able to take out, right? So, in order to do that, like I mentioned, so make a list of that. That is your personality and your attitudes, then your skills and your education, your appearance, and it could also be your dreams and goals of what you want to achieve. So these are the things that would basically construct yourself and what you are, right? Your dreams, your personality, your attitudes, and then your skills and your education or your knowledge. So in working with the self, if we are to re-evaluate, these are the factors which we have to re-evaluate, right? So these are the ones that we are going to re-evaluate in order to see how we can use them in the future. So if we are re-evaluating these factors, I'm going to break down one by example for you. While doing it, I'm going to help myself by doing it on a piece of pen and paper because that really helps this kind of activity to work. So if you want this session to be one that was productive, I recommend that you also pick up a piece of pen and paper and note these things down. So if you break down, when you take your personality or attitudes, you could be, some people could be like, a more friendly personality. Someone can be a more serious personality. Someone can be a very naive personality. So there are very various kind of different personalities that you can possess as a person, right? Now that takes a very intense amount of working. We do personality development trainings as well, but that is not what we are going to evaluate or re-evaluate during this particular session that we have, because it's a bit too complex to get into, and it's going to take a lots of our time, and only the attention is not something that we can sort out in 30 minutes, right? So what we are going to look at rather is the areas of your skills, your knowledge, and your dreams and or your goals, and look at how you can re-evaluate these things based on what we have learned from this uh, post-pandemic in this post-pandemic world that we are living in, right? So I mean, it's not currently a post-pandemic, we are still in a pandemic, but in this pandemic world uh, that we are living in, we're going to figure out how it's going to work, right? So if we are to evaluate your skills and your education, right? What I'd like to ask you is to first take very close note of how your education or the knowledge necessity of the current time has changed drastically, right? Me and you can absolutely agree on that. I believe that many things in the world, unquestionably, they have changed, right? They are being challenged. So after this pandemic, they have been severely affected. So for an example, if you take industries like what I operate my other business in, which is travel, these are industries that are severely affected. If you're someone who is working in this industry, I think it's seriously time to reevaluate what else are your options and what other things are possible for you to do in moving forward. If you are in, trades of luxury products where, it is you people buy you for the brand name, or if people buy you for how prestige and luxurious you are, consumption and usage in these product categories, they are going to go down, and that is not a question at all. And then if you also look at places or event organizers, businesses related to events and entertainment, it's being severely hit. If you work in these areas, this is also something that you need to really consider, that you really have to look at reevaluating what's going to be necessary in the future, right? And so before we jump into exactly what you need to do with yourself, I'm just going to tell about what's going on in the external world. So external, like I mentioned, so some of these industries are pretty badly affected and facing a lot of trouble. And at the same time, there is a lot of industries that are really booming, that are really coming up during this pandemic, right? And some of those industries would be like the delivery services that have basically grown exponentially, right? Like everyone is doing some kind of delivery, and they are serving some kind of products, right? So these are growing. Then all these online sessions like what we are doing right now, right, has grown to a great extent. So these are certain things. Or even if you were in certain industries like tourism and stuff like that, it's time to rethink how you can maybe bring a digital spin to that particular industry, right? So these are certain things that going on in the external world, in the world outside of you. That's what's going on, right? So these are things. The external world is something that you can't really impact or you can't really change, right? So what we will look at is what you can do with yourself through evaluating yourself. What is going to be possible for you to do moving forward in this post-pandemic world, right? So when we do these kind of evaluations, right, the first thing that I would recommend you to do is to initially make a list of what you believe your current skill sets are, right? So for an example, if you are someone who has a good listening skill, like you when someone is teaching something, when someone is telling something, you can be attentive. Okay, then you make a note of that. If you're someone, anywhere someone tells you, hey, can you share a few words? You're someone who can jump in and say, yes, I can do that. And you are always ready to deliver some kind of material in terms of speech. You're not someone who will shrug and run away from it, right? So then you have the skill of communication. Then maybe you're someone who's very good with craft. You're someone who's very good at, singing. You're someone who's great at, figuring out how, I don't know, I'm just thinking about my kid's toy, like, how you can break and make these things, what not. It could be something to do with mechanics. What are these skills that you currently have? Look at that skill set initially, right? And then, based on these changes that's happening in the world, right? It's very good to browse through to understand what kind of skills might be necessary, right? And when we look at what kind of skills might be necessary, right, we are able to understand what is the changes that one has to make in order to be relevant in the future, right? So some of the skills, in terms of skills, what I would say is, look, a lot of us think that we have social media skills, right? Or we have digital media skills. We think we have it. But the problem that I see with a lot of people is we have frequent social media usage. That's what we have. We don't have a mature understanding of the dynamics of how social media works, how their algorithms operate, how being a part of or a participant in social media, how you can use those algorithms to your benefit. A lot of people, we don't know it, right? And it's going to be an essential skill to have in the future. If you were someone who thought like, oh, all this computer related stuff, it's not going to be so important. I think the world is going remote. We saw it during this pandemic, and there is a huge possibility that remote working is going to just shoot out of the roof like never before. And if you're not prepared for it, you're just someone who will not be part of that bandwagon, right? And you'll probably be someone who's going to sit down and complain about how all these things are crazy and stupid changes that's happening in the world, but that will just be you. So if you want to be at the forefront of what that change is, we advise that you evaluate yourself, or you reevaluate yourself, and you plan of what skills you want to upgrade. So other skills that are going to be important are also going to be stuff like your financial skills, like how well you manage your financial literacy. For an example, maybe you were a person who just had a savings account before in the bank, right? And maybe a pandemic like this has showed how important it is to have different sources of income. Because the moment, for so many people during this pandemic, the moment your company said, done, you're out, they were out. And there was no source of income. And that's when they woke up to say, whoa, I need to leave now. And there's no other source of income. What do I do now? So then, waiting for that moment to start, what I am advising is that you improve your financial skills or your financial literacy, right? About your financial management skills, about how to use your finances, where to, put your money in. This is a skill. Spend money, learn it from people who are able to teach you that skill. Then another one would be another skill that's going to be essential is going to be also agricultural skills, right? So what we saw during this pandemic was a real shortage of food. We noticed that a lot of people were struggling to get daily essentials, and we also noticed that a lot of people were doing home gardening projects. We are doing one ourselves, me and my wife. We're doing a home gardening project here, and many other things like that, like where people are trying to use whatever patch that they have to keep themselves occupied. Also, it's a great way. So, and if you look at the agro tech today, right, agricultural technology today, it has gone very far away from where we think, where we think agriculture is. So you get things like aquaponics and hydroponics and whatnot. And I would say that you really need to look at skills like this as well, about skills of growing your own food, how you can make that within your home, and so on. And Also, another skill that's going to really be essential is the skill of consciousness, the skill of maintaining a healthy mental and conscious life. So that consciousness is going to be the skill of being conscious every time is going to be very vital for many reasons, not just to check out whether there is health hazards around you, but to also be conscious of uh, the little triggers that media is throwing at you, right? To try to make you either more scared of something or try to make you very pessimistic about something. So what I would advise is to improve that skill as well, the skill of conscious thinking, and try to look at what type of information, to be aware of the type of things that's happening around you, whether there's anyone that's suspicious that's around you that seems like someone who is infected or might have some disease. I'm not talking only of corona, right? What corona has taught us is a good uh, habit of being a bit more health conscious, and so the consciousness, the skill of being more conscious and attentive is going to be something that's also going to be necessary moving forward in the future. And another one is going to be the entrepreneurial skill. And why I say the entrepreneurial skill is going to be important is that you saw it, right? During these 2 months, you saw the amount of people that you know that became entrepreneurs overnight like that. And the point is that you never know when the next wave is going to hit. We never know when, again, maybe not corona, maybe it's going to be something else. Maybe it's going to be something that's coming out in 2021, 22. But what this pandemic has taught us is that we need to be prepared nevertheless. We need to be prepared for that future. And in that case, I advise that you critically evaluate your skills and look at what you can do to develop more relevant skills that are going to be applicable or going to be more practical for the future world that you and me have to live in. So that is one aspect of your evaluation. That is your skills and your education. In terms of education, what I would say is, so if you are someone who currently has a very standard education, right? So a lot of us, accountancy, law, and whatnot, engineering, if these are the areas that we currently have our education and learning in, it's going to be very interesting for you to look at new avenues of knowledge. So like I mentioned, if you want to improve the social media skill, there's definitely some sense of knowledge that you'll have to gain for that. I would say maybe join an institute that's providing a good course on social media marketing or digital marketing, right? Join a program where it's teaching you great computer literacy, just how to use PowerPoint effectively, how to use Microsoft Excel, how to use Access, how to use simple tools like Visual, maybe even a bit more complex ones like Visual Basic or something like that. But learn certain computer skills, like how you can use this device that's becoming so important to everyday life to your best interest. So what I would say is that you need to focus on those things as well, right? And then uh, in terms of education, if you are looking, so that's for the social media part of it, right? Then you can also look at things like maybe you want to start your own home garden, but you don't really have much knowledge about agriculture. Yes, you know that you put a seed in the sand, it's going to grow, but there are many things like the different types of weeds and pests that can affect your plant, right? The amount of water, the right type of the right type of fertilizer you can use, what kind of temperature your plants need to grow in. So various different things that you need to understand about the science of agriculture, and uh, which definitely requires some knowledge. And there are many programs online about this, but I'm sure there are also local agricultural institutes that provide these valuable programs, and maybe it's time that we reach out to them and learn these things. So in terms of education, you probably get the idea of what I advise and what I suggest that you do. So these are certain ways how I propose that you go about with equipping yourself by understanding where you stand with skills right now, and at preparing what skills are going to be necessary for the future, right? Then I would like you to move into the paradigm of the goals and dreams, right? Now, this is going to be a very tricky one. For a lot of us, maybe our goals are being threatened. Probably our dreams are being challenged right now, right? And this is going to create a lot of disturbance for us. I think it's going to make a lot of us feel very uncertain about the future for ourselves. Personally, I think at the beginning, even I felt that way. And it's all right. You're not the only one. I think everyone felt that way at some point, that our dreams are being really challenged and our goals are being tested. So this needs a real sense of evaluation or re-evaluation to understand how we need to go about assessing our goals and our dreams for the future, right? So when we speak of goals, based on this book of Law of Attraction, Sir Bob Proctor does a wonderful session where he breaks down goals into A type, B type, and C type goals. So I want you to break it down. If you have that piece of paper with you and a pen, write it down. A type goals, B type goals, and C type goals. I'm going to rush to tell you what these mean, right? So what are A type goals, right? A type goals are, goals which you have to achieve, right? And you know how to do it, right? So for an example, when you're setting your goals for after you evaluate yourself and you're setting your goal as to where you want to reach, right? If this goal is something that you know how to do it, it's an A-type goal. You know how it's done. There's no rocket science involved. For an example, let's say based on your evaluation, you understand that you have to improve your digital media skills or social media skills, right? So, but I advise that if you do want to do that, that you go look for a program, look for an institute or an online program that provides this kind of diploma or this kind of certificate or this kind of course, and you get yourself certified and you get yourself qualified in it. So that's an A-type goal. So that's a goal that you set for yourself and you know how to do it, right? So then you have the B-type goals, right? B-type goals are things that you think you can do, right? So for an example, let's say entrepreneurship isn't something that you've already tried for yourself, right? Your own business is something that you haven't really done for yourself, right? So you don't know how it's done, but you think you can do it, right? So those are your B-type goals, right? Those are the things that you think that you can achieve. So you don't know how, but you know that someday you will have your own business, right? So those are kind of the B-type goals that you set up, right? And then you have your C-type goals, right? So your C-type goals will be, like I mentioned, it's like the stuff that you really want, like for example, like I really want to have this place that I live in that has a lot of animals. I'm very connected to nature and animals. So I want it to be like a bit of a foresty atmosphere. I want it to be a large area. I want it not to be in an apartment. I want to be on earth. I want it to have horses, maybe different varieties of chickens. Like I want something like that. That's what I really want in my life. And I don't know whether I will have it. And I don't know how I'm going to have it, but I just know I will, and I want it. So that is my C-type goal. And I'm asking you, what is your C-type goal? What do you really want from life, right? So if you can answer those questions, right, then you're able to set clearly those goals that you want to achieve, right? So working back again, when you evaluate yourself, what's going to happen is you need to evaluate these goals again, right? So your C-type goal might be more of the dream, right? Your C-type goal is really the dream. And in achieving that dream, your A-type and B-type goals are going to be vital in how you achieve them. And the type of goals that you put down as your A-type and B-type goals are going to be the ones that really prepare you to achieve that future that you see in your C-type goal or your dream, right? Your dream that you want to achieve, the dream goal that you want to achieve. So the importance here is to understand that none of this is going to fall out from the sky. It's going to take your time. Yes, you need to work on it, and you need to make sure that you spend time to understand yourself. I think a beautiful blessing that was disguised in the form of this pandemic was that it gave us all that time. Yes, I understand it might have been in the house. For some of you, it might have been alone. Some of you, it might have been with two other people. For some of you, it could have been with just one other person. For some of you, it could have been with a whole band of people, like big families, right? Whatever it was, whichever the condition that you lived in, I think this pandemic gave you time to really look at yourself, to look at things that really inspire you, to look at things that really make you feel alive, and things that really help you to grow, right? So I want you to look at those things and evaluate yourself as to where you stand in that. And when you are generally making an evaluation, you make an evaluation because you want to assess a current state and you want to look at a state that you can achieve in the future, right? So if you understand where you are by the assessment that you do, and then you can also see where you want to go in terms of your goals and your dreams, uh, it becomes much more easier for you as an individual to break down that process and understand activity wise on a daily basis what do I need to do, on a weekly basis what are the things I need to do. And these things that I'm speaking of, they definitely are going to require change, right? And well, if you don't accept the fact of change, and if you are not willing to create that change, well, it's going to be a really tough time for the ones who are going to resist change at this moment, because this has challenged the most uh, strong held industries in the world, right? It has crippled industries across the world, and it is demanding industries to change. It is demanding markets to change, and it's demanding you to change. And the faster you accept that, and the faster you start working towards that change, uh, the faster you will be the change. You'll be the change that this future needs. You'll be the change that your family needs. You'll be the change that your community needs. And you'll be the change that you need. So I invite you to very strongly take self-evaluation into consideration. This is a 30-minute session. It's very difficult to break down all types of evaluations within short frames of time, because these are intense inner works. So you need to work with the person. If any of you all are interested, the website's there. That's my name, archaeology.lk. That's where you can find us. You can also talk to International Youth Alliance for Peace and ask you to connect me with you all, and I'll be more than willing to help out if anyone needs any assistance in that area. And I'm also willing to take any questions if any of you have questions. All right, then. Thank you very much for having me, International Youth Alliance for Peace. It was great sharing this evening with you all, and I hope you'll all have a great future ahead. Thank you. Ayubowan.